It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Amazing.
I could sure stand to have a chicken burger right about now.
With gravy?
Absolutely. Can't have a chicken burger without gravy. What are you talking about?
Oh, Christ.
This could be our chicken fried episode. Don't you guys have movies you watch that are called Chicken Fried or?
Kentucky Fried Movie, yes. And
Yeah.
you love that film.
It's not
We know
quite
you.
chicken.
Not quite fried
Maybe it was
either.
the Kentucky.
Mm.
Yeah.
Neither is chicken on the sea.
Sorry, Charlie.
Wow. Only a minute, and we're gone.
This does not bode well. But anyway.
Good night,
It's just
everybody. See you
continued.
next week.
Keep your waitress.
Go home.
Wow.
Okay, one, it's a podcast. People can listen to it wherever the hell they want. And two, we're all at home individually ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It works.
Maybe.
So, I'm afraid to ask what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy.
Oh, man. Just fighting sanity, you know. It's an everyday battle.
You could try letting it win occasionally.
Right? Not in this house. I really don't have a lot to say today.
3,
Yeah.
2, 1.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Oh, God.
I don't really even have anything to rant about. It's unusually a good week. I don't know how the hell that happened. I'm still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know? Story of my life. I've been getting caught up on my doctor shows. So nothing real nerdy or anything. So I don't have, yeah.
I don't know. There's an awful lot of technobabble in those doctor shows.
Some of them are pretty interesting because of COVID, of course, happened. And it changed the way that a lot of them, like Grey's Anatomy, Shonda Rhimes, the queen of emotional porn. At first they did the little COVID segment and was kind of showing, you know, what was happening inside the hospitals at that time, you know, at the beginning of the height of this. And now with the new season, before every show, they're like, you know, we're living in a world post-COVID on the show, you know, although, you know, of course they give the stats and blah, 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 blah. So they let you know that just because we're not portraying it on the show, it's still out there, you know. And I watch another show called New Amsterdam, which has, what is his name? He was Tom Keene on The Blacklist.
Yeah.
Ryan Eggold, something like that.
Yeah.
But he's now the doctor over here at the new show, well, it's not new. It's like 3 seasons in now. But I I like Dr. Show, so when I heard he was there, it was like, why not? I like him. And that one's been really good. They kind of touched in on COVID too and didn't get real heavy into it, but they're showing the like after effects of COVID, what it did to the hospital, the money they had to spend, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of nice to get a break though, when you don't have that shoved in your face constantly, So, and then I was telling y'all before the show, I watched another one called The Resident that used to have Emily Van Camp on it. And it's kind of weird because I heard she had left the show because she's just had a baby not too long ago. And she wanted some time, with her baby. Perfect sense. I'm a mother. I completely agree. If you have something that's taking priority over your child, you're doing something wrong, And so, I kind of understood for her to step back. But then Marvel series came out, The What If, and she played Sharon Carter in that. There was something else that Marvel did that she's played in that. So it's kind of like, okay, wait a minute, I thought we were spending time with the baby.
I think she was in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but God, that was filmed.
That filmed before COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
What If was animated, wasn't it? So she could record that at home.
True.
So.
True. Okay, so I'm not as mad then.
There you go. Yeah, that was the whole point.
Well, and we don't know when that was recorded because remember, Chadwick Boseman was Black Panther in the What If. So we don't know how long ago that all that was recorded. So
right,
and they kept under wraps. Yeah.
Yep.
But it was kind of interesting because speaking of Marvel and parents, Hawkeye, the guy who plays him.
Jeremy Renner.
Name once again.
Yep.
Oh, do what?
Jeremy Renner.
Yes. He also has said up front pretty much, he told Marvel, hey, you can replace me if you want. You can recast him. But he just got custody of his daughter and was like, until she gets old enough to where I'm no longer cool to hang out with, this is going to be my priority. And I don't know, you kind of have to, mad respect. Not a lot of parents do that. So,
yeah, good for him.
So, yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. And actually, Marvel didn't recast him. So I guess Marvel was kind of like, we'll work with you on this, and which is pretty cool too. A lot of, I say a lot of companies. I think we've gotten into a time now where companies and corporations, to a certain degree, understand you have children. I think COVID really shined a bright light on that parents will quit a job before you put your child in danger. And so a lot of them have respect the family aspect now, So, bravo. Step forward. It's a work in progress, but...
You mean that posting on our site was wrong? Was that fictitious or something?
What posting? Did I miss something?
That
Did they
picture
fire?
of Hawkeye.
I guess they did. I guess I missed that. I think
time
actually
jump
this.
Again.
Uh-huh.
I think this was actually before, like Endgame and stuff, where he told them, "You can recast me if you want to," And I think as deep in as Marvel was with their phase 1, phase 2, I don't think they wanted to mess with the formula,
Well, I think they have because there was an article, little editorial on one of the sites just within the last week. I didn't post it on our Discord, but it was talking. It's talking about the fact that hey, this we're Marvel's in Phase 4, and a lot of, talking about the fact that most of the characters and actors are gone. It's kind of a turnover, and things don't seem to be doing so well right now. But it's like, well, they're taking more risks. I mean, Eternals just came out, and that's been kind of divisive, I guess is the word to use. There's a lot of people that love the film, and there's a lot of people that hate the film. Shang-Chi did real well, but we're getting there's a turnover of these characters, and so this is kind of a challenging time for them because you don't have Iron Man anymore. You don't have the Captain America that we're used to anymore. Thor may be turning the hammer over because we already know Natalie Portman is going to be playing.
And the next one.
Playing Thor. Well, I mean, both of them are supposed to be in there, but there's also mention of Thunderstrike, who is another variation of Thor. So, and of course, with all these new shows coming out, kind of featuring other characters, it's kind of a unique time for Marvel Studios.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of at that point now after watching the Loki series that they did. At this point right now, Marvel could do anything. They like totally crashed the timeline. They've crashed all the multiverses. I mean, they really screwed things up. There's going to be a lot of work repairing what happened with Loki there. And it leaves Marvel in a good place because, like I said, at this point, you can do anything. If you want to have a different actor come in for Iron Man, now would be the time to do it. We're kind of seeing a little bit of that with Spider-Man, with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Now, that is one thing with the new trailer. They're not in there, but they've made a lot of reference to them being in there. And after what Loki did, it would make sense that all of these guys are coming back together. We're seeing villains that were killed that are now alive. And they're like, oh, no, because he's from Earth 2. And it's like, that's perfect. That's how they can fix, I don't know if Marvel thought outside of Phase 4, Endgame. Where do you go from Endgame? They were done, That's
literally what the word means.
Yeah, they perfectly executed what they wanted to do. They followed the plan. They stuck with it. So now they're kind of like, well, where do we go from here? We did so well with the 4 phases that we did, but they're at the end of Phase 4.
No, they're not.
Marvel was kind of missing it. I totally did not like. Maybe it's because I don't like Brie Larson, but I didn't like her movie. I can't even remember what she was. That's how memorable her movie was.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. I don't know. So I think they're going to have to go back to, with the first 4, they brought in people who every Joe Schmo, whether you picked up a comic book or not, you know who these guys are. You know who Thor is. You know who Hulk is. We'll throw you some that are, I hate to say it, but the average Joe didn't know who Black Widow was. She's never been real popular outside of comic books, So I think, so with the multiverse being crashed, they could have a different Iron Man come in. They could have a different Hulk or, So I think they're in a good spot. I'm just curious how they're going to play with that.
Well, let me correct you on one thing. The Phase 4 is not done. Actually, Black Widow was actually the beginning of Phase 4, so we're just now starting.
Phase 4.
Yeah.
So Phase 3.
So, because technically Spider-Man Far From Home was the end of Phase 3, which I thought was kind of weird because it seemed like that would be an epilogue. Endgame would have been the perfect end for Phase 3, but who am I? I see what you're saying, but saying, yeah, let's bring back these characters because people know them and those are guaranteed getting butts and seats.
Yeah.
But that's why we have 500 Batman films, why we have 500 Superman films, and we have nothing else. Then we're going to turn around and go, well, why are we having another Batman movie with an origin and all this kind of stuff? We've seen this before. I don't want to get. I really don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So I trust Kevin Feige. There is a plan. We don't know what it is, and we don't have to know. If they know, and they're going along the side, and now I'm sure a lot of it's changed now that they've got the rest of the characters that 20th Century Fox has, because now we've got. We definitely know a Fantastic Four movie is coming. At some point, they're going to have to address the whole mutant issue and get them in, because they got to do something with those characters. They can't just leave them on the sidelines. And then there's
they kind of introduced the mutants in WandaVision. They kind of left that door open there.
Well, and apparently they did. It was an opening was possibly introduced in Eternals, but I haven't seen the movie, so I can't confirm or deny. So we'll see. Will they recast some of these characters? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, they're still standing firm on that they will not recast T'Challa. That was Chadwick Boseman's character. No one will ever play him again. It's certainly not live action. They seem to be pretty adamant as of right now.
I mean, no disrespect here whatsoever, none. But I don't get that. I understand he played the part, and he played it well, but how many Supermans have we had? How many Batmans have we had? How many Iron Man? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of a, if we went by that standard on everything, we wouldn't have had a Superman outside of Christopher Reeves, or we wouldn't have a Wolverine outside of Hugh Jackman. I mean, it's people who stepped into those roles and made it theirs, like he did. Totally agree. Wonderful actor. He played the part very well. But, I just don't get it. I don't know. And like you said, no disrespect to anybody meant. I guess after watching 20 versions of Batman, I just don't get it. So if he was still alive today, would they still not let anybody else play that part?
If he decided not to play it anymore, then they'll really cast. But that's obviously not an option.
Right.
I understand it to a degree.
I mean, I see where the respect and the honor's coming from, but at the same time, it's kind of like we've had a lot of wonderful actors step into roles who you couldn't picture anybody else playing, and it's not a disrespect or saying we didn't like them when they're recasted later, When Christian Bale took the cowl, people weren't like, "Oh, well, what about Michael?" It was just.
They were.
I don't know.
Yeah,
they were. Yes,
they were
but
really fucking loud about it too.
And then he played the part, and they got over it.
Well,
some of them did.
So, yeah.
Well, I can't say anything because I'm still a big Chris Reeve Superman fan. Although I'm not saying anything disparaging about the others I think
Right.
they did fine jobs.
He just didn't
But
body the role.
well,
You
and
know?
he didn't. I think the fact that he died so young is playing a part. That's what they're.
Yeah.
The rest of these, they've been recast that are still, the actors were still alive. I mean, very few exceptions, like George Reeves back in the 50s. That type of stuff. So I think it's a little
What about the
different.
Crow who died in his role? We still recast that and had, 2 other movies after it? And it wasn't saying that we disrespected Brandon Lee. It was just, here's a script. It wasn't a dishonor to him, and it wasn't done to hurt any of his fan base or anything either.
And with all due respect to Brandon Lee and The Crow, that film did not have the impact that Black Panther did.
True. Very true.
I mean, what happened, certainly in this country after Black Panther, the closest I can compare it to is the Batmania we had back in 1989 when that film came out. It was very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, you had people walking around doing the hand gestures, like they did in Wakanda, that kind of stuff. That was going on.
Well, and Black Panther did give a voice to a minority that's been overlooked for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in, just the comic book scene. There wasn't a lot of black superhero movies, Mm-hmm. So I see where it's coming from. I don't get it. But, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sticking my foot in my mouth. Who wants to take over?
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, and they can always change their mind. But I've seen this. I still see this being discussed on social media, and it's still. I don't want to say 50-50, but it's right around there. There are some people that say, yeah, they should never recast that character, and some say, yeah, I mean, go ahead. I mean, Boseman did a great job, but let's get someone else in there as well. There's more stories to tell with T'Challa. And so I seem to do this a lot. I seem to be on the fence. I can see both sides, and I don't.
Yeah. I can see both sides, and the honor that they're retiring this character because of the voice that he gave them. I can't understand why you wouldn't want someone to take that voice and carry it forward. If you want representation and a voice in things, why you see where I'm going? Why would you want to take that person that made it so I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. If it was a message they received from watching it, why would you not want that message to continue, especially with the climate we're living in right now?
Well, and I think that the theory is that they can do that without necessarily that character.
Yeah, without using T'Challa.
They can use that as a springboard to bring other characters in to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Even if they have to get a little creative with it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is Hollywood we're talking about. Theoretically, they're supposed to be able to get creative with things.
Theoretically.
I mean, ultimately, it's a choice that the filmmakers are making. It's essentially a choice that Feige is making. And, I mean, he's the one in charge.
Yeah. And like I said, I totally get where the honor and respect is coming from. I do.
Right. It's not the choice you would have made.
No.
If you had $400 kajillion to make movies with.
Right. And it wouldn't have been a choice that I would have done to piss people off or, to make a quick buck or whatever, but it would be a choice to continue my vision. But yeah,
Sure, but
like
sometimes
said, no,
you also have to understand how your vision can evolve and become something else.
Yeah, a
And
different way.
whether what that film did was really what Feige and or the directors of the film and producers intended. There's what they're trying to do is recognize that
made an impact.
That particular piece of art did something that they didn't expect, and it did something really important. And you kind of have to respect them for not wanting to fuck around with that.
Yeah.
Because it would be real
totally
easy. Yeah, it would be real easy to try to cash in on the success of that movie. And
they don't want to cheapen what he did.
Right. They don't want to cheapen. They don't want to alter that by milking it the way they'd have to, especially given that they would have to cast someone else to do it. And casting someone else is a real crapshoot because yes, you could bring in someone who could not do what Boseman did, but do something equally powerful, or you could not.
Yeah.
And
they could go the long way and get Michael Jordan in there.
Odds are it's a lot easier to screw it up than it is to do it right.
Big time.
And so they're taking the wise choice and counting on the fact that they're going to make a crap ton of money doing other things.
Yeah. And he's got more phases to go through, so,
Oh yeah, I'm betting he's got crap. He could do 100 more movies without even batting an eye.
At least. Yeah.
Whether any of them will be good or not, who knows? I mean, some of them will, but some of them won't. Better not to take the risk.
True.
At least not for a while.
So, Mike.
Yeah, not bad for not having anything to talk about.
Right.
Well, that's why we get scared when she says that.
Well, that's why she says it every week now. But anyway. Hey, the idea that we can sit here and literally friggin' improv for half an hour, I wouldn't have expected that 250 episodes ago. I wouldn't have thought we could get away with that, but we kind of do it every week now. So hey,
we do, yeah.
That's cool.
I like our group discussions.
Not to get too meta on it, but
Too late.
So, I did something a little sort of different this week. I'm going to admit, listening to another podcast, I got this idea stuck in my head.
Oh God.
I'm not wearing a tutu.
Oh no,
that's for less.
No, you're not the one who's going to wear the tutu. But anyway, I don't care if you do have a black one.
Look this way, pal.
Too late.
No, it's not that bad. What I realized was that I'm listening to this podcast and they're talking about how awesome Barbara Steele is, and I'm like, it took me a little while to realize it, but I was like, I've only ever seen one of her movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to watch old horror movies. You have to watch Black Sunday. It's just sort of a thing you have to do. But I kind of started thinking about it. It's like, I can't think of another Barbara Steele movie I've seen. So I decided I'm going to watch some Barbara Steele movies. Because there seems to be a bunch of them on Tubi, because Tubi has friggin' everything. So I watched a movie called Nightmare Castle. It is from 1965. And Barbara Steele stars as in a dual role, which is, I think, probably why this movie was made in the first place. It was made to cash in on her apparent ability to play a dual role, but which it was actually really cool in this movie because the roles were very different, and it was not something she was like. It was not a split screen thing or anything. She played the one character who died, and then her sister came in, and she was a very different person. So yeah, this is the story of essentially it's the story, kind of the story of the doctor, um, who basically caught his wife screwing around, and this is an Italian horror film, so just keep that in mind, in the 60s. So this doctor catches his wife screwing around with the gardener and tortures them to death. This is in the first 20 minutes of the movie. How much of it they show, I will leave up to that. I mean, it's 1965. The gore is not horrendous or anything, but there is a little bit. The problem becomes that the deal is the doctor was mooching off of the wife because the wife was the one with the money. The wife apparently did not leave the money to the husband. She left it to her stepsister. So we get Barbara Steele back because the clever doctor runs off as soon as his wife is barely cold in the ground at this point, and runs off and marries the stepsister because the stepsister is well known for having some kind of mental issues. She's not entirely sane. So he basically bounces her from the asylum and marries her and brings her back to this castle. Well, the problem you've got is that the first wife is not done haunting the castle yet. And being stepsisters, they have a connection, so it's real easy for the first wife to kind of take over the second wife occasionally for a couple of minutes at a time here and there, and it's slowly driving her crazy, of course. And so they bring in her old doctor. The husband sends for her old doctor, and he comes and stays, and it just sort of goes downhill from there. And it's a surprisingly good movie considering how convoluted it is. The dubbing is a little weird sometimes, but because they're not dubbing in these movies is always a little weird for me. I don't know. There's just something weird about the lips not matching up, and the weird thing is that sometimes it's dubbed and sometimes it's not, and so it's just it's a little jarring for me, but it actually doesn't really hurt the movie in this case. It's a pretty dang good movie, and Barbara Steele does do a pretty nice job of it. Even though a significant amount of her acting is her pretending to be asleep and having nightmares, which is a little bit of a cheap out in my opinion. But yeah, and I definitely got the feeling from the script, although it was fairly well done, but it seemed like an attempt to kind of capitalize on the fact that Barbara Steele has done the dual role thing before. It seems like it was kind of expressly written for that, because it's not bad, but it's not all that sophisticated either. So it seemed like it was done in a hurry, and for it being a fairly low budget movie, I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, it's all black and white, but I mean the film is still in good condition, and the sets are good. I mean, not stellar, but good. And overall, I thought it worked pretty well. So I'm going to try to catch at least one or two more of these things, just so I can feel like I've caught up with my clear lack of Barbara Steele.
So what's up with half her face?
That's part of the torture.
Okay.
They do not show that happening on screen, but it is pretty obvious from what they do, from the way they show it. That yeah, they're acid burns.
Okay. That's pretty gnarly looking.
Yeah. Not bad for 65 and
That's what I was just thinking. Damn.
Not bad.
I'm looking at the prosthetic on her face, and you can't even see the seam lines, it's pretty well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
it's really pretty too.
Yeah.
Very goth looking.
Sure, which makes when she comes in, yeah, the Muriel, the first one, yeah, very goth looking, very like long dark hair. Mm-hmm. When she comes in as the sister, I can't. It's black and white, so it's hard to tell whether it's a dye job or a wig job, but very blonde hair. to distinguish clearly. But yeah, I mean, like I
Looks
said,
like a wig.
it kind of does, but it also, yeah, it changes up often enough that either it was a pretty big series of wigs, or maybe they just dyed her hair for one go or something. I don't know. Seems like a drastic dye job, but
Right, especially with how dark her hair was.
yeah, I mean, she does it well. I mean, she pulls it off,
Hmm.
doing it to as much as she can. Oh yeah, there's the thing. Yeah, and for those who are familiar with Italian cinema, the music in this was done by Ennio Morricone.
Woo!
So yeah, it's a fun one.
I'll have to watch that one.
It's on Tubi.
I'll watch that after Sparks.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm looking at her filmography and I'm going. I've some of these names I'm familiar with, but I hadn't watched. So the only thing I have watched of hers is The Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh, the Vincent Price one?
Yes.
She was in that? I missed. Oh, damn. Okay. Apparently, I have seen more than one of her
Okay.
movies. I just didn't realize that was her, which is weird because I feel like I just watched that recently. I don't know.
I've seen Piranha.
See, I'm not sure if I've
Dark
seen
Shadows.
Piranha. I'm not sure if I've seen Piranha.
That was one of those cheesy.
I know who it is. 'Cause, I mean, well, the second unit director on that film, James Cameron.
Ah,
That was his start. I believe he was second unit.
I think I've seen the Boneyard Collection too.
Yeah, I mean, these are all movies that I've heard of and never really gotten around to watching.
Yep.
That's what I say. I think I've heard of some of these, but not seen them.
And it's funny checking out because I'm looking through Wikipedia, and she lasted a week on Flaming Star, which was a Elvis Presley Western.
Huh.
And
I
she was
saw Elvis there.
and she was recast by Barbara Eden.
I could see that, especially after seeing the blonde hair she had on, trying to get someone to look similar.
So,
I don't know. I'm in love with her eyes.
I'm just going back and checking. I thought Cameron was involved with Piranha. He came from the Corman crew.
So many of them did.
Yeah, but it seems to me that he was involved with that film. Okay,
He
Piranha
did
2.
the second one, yeah.
Yeah, Piranha 2. Okay. So, all
And he
right.
disowned it. So he didn't like what he did there. Except I think I've seen all of the Piranhas because that's like the cheesy B movies that they'll play late at night on black and white TV.
Yeah, they were just trying to capitalize on Jaws and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen bits and pieces of Piranha 3D.
Yeah, any way I could get horror, I watched it.
Let me just say the best part was the beginning because it has a cameo of Richard Dreyfuss, and he's singing the song that he sung in Jaws.
That's cool.
Which if you hadn't seen Jaws, you probably don't get the reference. But when he started singing, I started laughing my ass off. I was like, that's funny. But cool. Yeah, I definitely need to rectify that.
Yeah.
If I remember, she did a science fiction movie, and it was god awful. Not even Barbara Steele could save this one. And I'm sorry I don't remember the name, but good Lord, I was happy that when that one was over.
Now I'm looking at all these going, which could be sci-fi?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do myself.
There's no way of knowing.
None.
Yeah.
None at all. Any of them could be.
All right.
For me, I took in a documentary called, you may have talked about this before, Thomas, Secret Origin, about the creation of DC Comics. This one takes you back prior to the first appearance of Superman. This takes you back to when comics were collections of newspaper strips. And it took you from there forward, and I thought, this is really well done. There's a lot of stuff here that people don't know about. And if you're an avid reader, then this is something that you should see. It was about, I want to say, almost 2 hours long, but it was worth every minute. Filling me in on things, making me remember what I had read in previous magazines or books. So
I think they've played this one on, like, maybe it was Discovery Channel.
I don't know. It's a 2001 book or movie,
Was it?
I believe. I can't guarantee that, but I thought that's what it may just be that Netflix had it
Yeah.
first time in 2021.
Okay.
But this was good, and it was segmented so you could hear about the golden age, the silver age, the modern age, just progresses forward. And they had a slew of writers and artists on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun to see people you know of being represented by themselves. Nobody was trying to one up anybody, but it was pretty amazing, starting with Neil Adams. He was not the moderator. He was just the first person that stepped forward and told part of his story. It was moderated by Ryan Reynolds. So it was something good. If you get the chance, take the time to live this one and see how things were done at first. Everything from Superman to Bob Kane and his shady dealings.
Nice.
Neat. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's about it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What the?
For me, not a whole heck of a lot. I started kind of getting back recently, kind of watching deck breakers or card breakers, whatever way you want to call it. And if you're not familiar with this it's a process where people kind of pay into a pool, and the dealer or who the vendor or whatever name you want to call them opens up a box of trading cards. It's usually sports cards, although I have seen that there's some they're doing Pokemon and Magic cards now, and then they may have been for some time, and I just did not realize it, although it makes sense as well. And how they got it set up is, in the pool you may get where you get certain teams or something like that. So, say for example, if you're doing football, since football's going on right now, of course basketball is too, but and hockey. But just football, and one of your teams is, say, the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're opening up the cards, and you see exactly what's in the card, because that pack, because it's being all streamed. The camera's focused on the cards, so he's going through and showing what's exactly in a pack, and you get those cards. You get whatever your team is, or that kind of thing, or if you buy certain. Or if you throw money in to where you're buying packs, well, they'll open the pack and say, okay, this is what you're going to get, that kind of thing. And it's kind of interesting to see all of that. I've never really taken the time to kind of read into the whole thing, how it came about and that type of thing. But I did see there was some discussion about whether this is lottery, because it's like, well, you're putting money in and you're winning stuff. And I was like, well, in some states that may be considered gambling. And I'm like, well, here in Texas, we have the lottery. It's the same damn thing. So are we gambling? Is that gambling? Well, isn't gambling illegal? We got horse tracks here too. It's kind of like one of those loose things. It doesn't make any sense. I was like, well,
I think technically casinos are illegal, although so are basically gambling parlors. I guess it depends on how you define it.
Yeah.
But it seems to be pretty specific in Texas law. I don't know.
I had to care enough to look into it. It's kind of funny how things kind of weasely away, weasels their ways through laws and rules and that kind of stuff. Anyway, but it's kind of interesting to see it, plus the fact, granted, I hadn't really followed sports the last several years, but just the kind of the, I don't want to say excitement, but just kind of the interest of them opening the packs and seeing what's exactly in theirs. Because I remember doing that. I remember used to getting trading cards. I didn't do a lot of. I did sports cards collecting back in the 90s, back when it was really big in the 90s, and Mikey can vouch for that because he saw me do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of cool, kind of look and see what's in the packs. It's kind of like, kind of like Christmas. You don't know what's going to be in the pack, and hey, you may get some great stuff. And again, you may get a pair of socks and underwear. It's just kind of fun to watch that. So but I'm sitting there going, okay. I have no value. I don't know how valuable these cards are, other than what is being stated. And the thing that kind of turned me off, I tried to get back into trading cards, and Les will verify this as well, a few years back. But the problem is what they've done is they've thrown so many inserts into the cards that there's no way you can put together a set or put together any of the insert collections. There's just no way. You can buy a box and you may only get, if you're lucky, you may get half of the set put together. And kind of going old man here, I remember back in the days. Now, granted, back then there was more cards. There was really not the only insert you would get would be one sticker and maybe a back the piece of gum. But if you bought a box, you were pretty much guaranteed to get a set, and probably if you're lucky, you might get half of a second set. And it just that's nowhere possible nowadays. I don't know how many boxes it would take to put together a set of, say, I don't know. But anyway, it's been kind of fun watching that. Like I said, I just got back in to start watching, checking it out, and it's kind of neat. And so,
and this can be found where?
Oh, they're streamed everywhere. I found it on Twitch. Vaughn TV has it, although you have to have a separate login and password for that, which I thought was kind of strange because I figured, hey, I would be access all of it, but and they're on YouTube.
Okay.
There's a lot of them on YouTube too, I'm sure. It was funny. The first one I kind of watched, she was good, and she was actually doing magic at the time. That's when I first went, oh, okay, that makes sense that they can, you can do that with magic cards as well. I hadn't thought about it. But the thing was I couldn't watch her very long, although she was very good. You could tell that she was a pro at doing this, and she was very good with interacting with the chat and doing all this. She sounded like a female Robin Leach. So the voice and accent really started getting on my nerves pretty damn quick. And I just like, okay, I gotta get out of here. So no offense to her, but it really got on my nerves. So. Other than that, not a whole heck of a lot. Still working, trying to finalize the schedule for next year, inching closer and closer. Next year's going to be a blast. I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and that's obviously not including stuff that's going to pop up during the year that we go, hey, we need to discuss this, which that invariably happens. And so things will change. But right now, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So.
It better be.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we always have a good time. We have a good time talking about nothing.
Mm.
We're the Seinfeld of podcasts.
Oh, God.
Yada, yada, yada.
Beep, 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 beep.
Wasn't that the Seinfeld thing?
like to
Yada,
think
yada, yada.
One of many. But yeah, I like to think we have
And
better
so
music.
on and so on.
You like the music? You like me doing the music there? Beep, 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 beep. Whatever.
Sure. We'll go with
Whatever.
that.
Anyway.
It's cool.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into this week's discussion, it's already been mentioned a little bit, but we do have a Discord that y'all are more than welcome to come join us. We do a lot of discussions. We post news items there, some fun stuff, memes, music. We post trailers.
Locate old cartoons that you thought you were going crazy until someone found it.
It is
What
a
do you
thing
mean
that has
going?
happened.
We
I was
mean
already
going.
there.
Yeah.
It just brought me back a little,
I told
Thanks,
you not
by
to.
the way.
No problem. Hey, special shout out to Carl because he's the one that I vaguely remember it, and then he posted the Wikipedia with the title And that's where I found the actual cartoon. So there you go.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
too
I can't take full credit. Carl did a lot of the legwork. I just happened to help out. So
Carl's the one who took that you know the cartoon with that thing where the place and the thing and made sense out of it somehow. I
And it
don't
had
know.
the thingy.
Mm-hmm.
and this happened, and then because of that, this happened, and then something else went on, and
See, I remember too much of it for it not to be real. I mean, I've seen a lot of cartoons in my life, considering I've worked with children for over half my life, and I'm a child myself. I've seen a lot of cartoons. So after everybody was like, no, I've never even heard of that, it was kind of one of those, well, am
well,
I putting two cartoons together? And I wasn't. So,
the reason why they didn't know it is that's not one of those that they showed that often. I remember
Right.
seeing it I would see it once in a blue moon back in the day.
yeah.
I mean, it was familiar.
But once he said Tex Avery, it was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
Before Cartoon Network had Adult Swim, they had, it was the black and white cartoons. They would take the old cartoon that was black and white, and they would play it up against the new one. Well, Tex Avery was like, it was pretty much Tex Avery cartoons, to where they finally broke him down with like he was the first one to do the bulging eyes that the wolf does, the wolf gull.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I've probably seen that cartoon more than one time when they talked about him.
Yeah.
Because it was like, that just makes perfect sense.
Well, and another one of his that I'm sure definitely doesn't get played now, but was played infrequently is usually ones of Technology of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Where they hey, here's the new cars, or here's the new appliances for the wife in the kitchen.
And have the mother-in-law on the bubble in the back of the car.
Yeah. Usually anything that involved the mother-in-law was usually something that's going to be torture or
right.
That's
Toaster
definitely
in the bathtub kind of thing.
Yeah. A chair for the mother-in-law, which is an electric chair, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that one doesn't get played a lot now.
Makes you think that Tex Avery had a mother-in-law who was a bit of a problem. I don't know.
Right. He was also known for taking his coworkers, who, God, really important guys who names just aren't my thing tonight. He would place them in the cartoon sometimes, or have them, do the voices and things. So the group that he worked with, there was probably about 4 or 5 of them. It sounded like a hoot. I would have had a blast working with these guys, Every day was funny.
Unless you're the mother-in-law.
Right.
Right.
So,
Discord, yeah.
Discord is free to sign up. The app is free. We do have an invite on our homepage, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Just go ahead and join our Discord. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Let's get into this week's discussion. We are pretty close to the 20th anniversary of the first chapter of Lord of the Rings live-action film, Fellowship of the Ring. Obviously, this is based on the novel by J.R.R. Tolkien, which came out in,
54?
54?
54 and 55.
Okay, right around that time. I remember it being early 50s, but I couldn't remember. I was going to say 53, so I wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
So the film was directed by Peter Jackson, who directed the other films, and obviously went back and did The Hobbit. It's such an amazing cast. Elijah Wood, Viggo Mortensen, Sir Ian McKellen, Sir Ian Holm,
Christopher Lee.
Yep, Sean Bean, Sean Austin, Liv Tyler, Kate Blanchett. I keep on and on and on, and we'll still miss some people. But I figure we take some time to talk about the first film, and if you want to discuss a little bit about the other two, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. The first one was broke down. The first film basically was The Gathering. We kind of had a little bit of fight scene and everything else, but the first movie really put together who the Fellowship was, what their adventure was, and definitely what the problem was. So the second and the third, you get more into the battles and, you know, the cool ass monsters and elephants and that kind of thing. I remember the books, but I don't remember the books. I think I actually read more of The Hobbit. I don't think that was part of this, was it?
Correct.
No.
Okay. I think I read more of The Hobbit, but I not enough to remember the books. So once again, this was kind of like a Marvel movie. I went into it not really knowing, but knowing, you know, kind of knowing the basic, but I still was surprised, and I absolutely loved it. The cast that they put together for this, Orlando Bloom hadn't even finished drama school yet. So a lot of people made their name and their mark with this movie. Elijah Wood, I mean, yeah, he was kind of big, but not like he is now. Well, he's not really big now, but like he was after he did these. I liked it. I don't know. A lot of it's
Flyball.
right. It's like one of those movies. I just finished watching all three of them back to back, so a lot of it's kind of like, where did that stop and where did this one start?
Don't worry about that. Forget about that.
Yeah.
Just
Did this one happen in this one?
It kind of doesn't
I love
matter.
the friendships that were portrayed in this. I think I was talking about Sam and Frodo before the show. Their friendship at times had me crying. I don't remember being that emotional the first time I watched these, but just the bond that these two had, they really sailed that home. You felt their relationship, talking how well the cast worked together. You felt like they really had known each other all their lives, and it amazing. A lot of the special effects that they did too, the trees, the Ents. I loved where he was like, I don't even know what a female Ent looks like anymore. Was that the second movie though?
Yeah, it was. That's okay.
Yeah. But with how serious it was, I love that there was moments like that to lighten it up, and you know, I think they had said that it was Sir Ian McKellen, or was it Christopher Lee? Hang on, I wrote this down. Christopher Lee. Every year since the book came out, he read it up until he died, and so he was a major influence in this movie to the point where he would go down there and tell him, hey, instead of him looking like this, he should look like this, and they pretty much took his word as gold. I was confused a little bit with him. I thought that he, probably because the names they used, I thought he was Sauron. Is that the I?
Sauron is the I.
Sauron.
Saruman is Christopher Lee.
Yeah, so you could see how that kind of gets confusing.
Sure.
So I honestly was like, well, when they kill him, it's over. Because he's the one who controls, all the rings, But that's when it was like, oh, wait a minute, dummy. That's the eye. So did I miss where they showed us who the eye was? Or is it just an eye?
Ah,
Did
it's
he ever have a body attached to him?
not in this story. No. It,
So was he the eye of the thing that they cut the ring off his
it,
finger?
it,
Yes.
it's essentially yes.
Okay.
Um, Sauron was never particularly human. Um, you can get real complicated explaining what Sauron was. Um, Suffice it to say, he was not human. He was more a force of evil, basically all the way back into the mythology that goes around the Lord of the Rings. But yeah,
Well, I mean, he had to be to come up with such a twisted plan. Hey, we're going to make rings because we're all BFFs right now, but hey, in the background, I'm making a ring to where I can watch and control you guys.
hmm
So it had to be pretty twisted to take something that they were trying to do, which was supposed to be unity and peace and purity, and he was like, no.
no, it's power. I mean, it's
Yeah,
yeah, and that's yeah,
it's evil.
very much so.
And I also noticed, I don't know, they probably didn't point this out in the books, but it looked like between the second and the third movie, when the orcs lost the first time, when the new set of orcs came through, it looked like they'd taken baths and were a little bit cleaner than the first wave of orcs. I mean, right? They weren't all slimy and muddy looking, and so that was kind of. I guess that was showing the different breed, or
Kind of, yeah.
yeah,
To yeah,
from a different source because
yeah,
that source had been taken out
right.
with the trees and the water and
Yeah, they pretty much been wiped out, and so yeah, you're yeah. And then so the deal is you're moving locations between the two battles. The first battle is in Rohan, which is kind of northeast of Gondor, and Mordor is kind of down south there, and the second battle is those are Mordor orcs.
okay,
The other guys are from elsewhere. They're the ones that Saruman had been working on for years by himself.
okay.
Definitely different orcs.
And Theoden being possessed, I guess. I was almost expecting that for the king, well, not even the king, the steward of Gondor. Well, I don't know his name. The
Denethor.
guy who tried to burn his son. That
Yeah.
was fucked up.
Well, again, we get real complicated with Denethor had a favorite son and a not favorite son, and the favorite son he sent the favorite son off to find the ring and bring it back to him, and Lord help him, he tried, but he didn't survive the experience, which I don't know. Spoilers for a 20-year-old movie.
Right.
Boromir didn't make it. This is a big part. This movie is a big part of where Sean Bean got his reputation for dying in every movie
Yep.
that he was in. So, yeah.
But he died very honorable. I think when he tried to take the ring from Frodo and he failed, I think he realized then, oh my God, what kind of freaking man would I be? I tried to kill a hobbit, So I think the way he died protecting Merry and Pippin was very honorable. I think it makes up for him trying to take that ring.
You cried then too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did.
And that's a heart-wrenching scene. I mean, and you're absolutely right. The whole point of that was he found an honorable death.
Yeah.
He came
He tried
north.
to justify.
He came north to find something to help his father, in an ongoing, in an everlasting, basically, conflict. And he slipped and almost fucked up real bad. and he had to redeem himself, and the only way he knew how to do that was with sword in hand. And so it got dramatic there for a minute.
See, and I don't blame him for trying to take the ring, because I don't think it spoke to his character because of what the ring was and what it did to people. Gollum. It had a way of making you do things you didn't want to do, or so I didn't really blame him for that. We even see that with Argon. He knew he couldn't carry that ring either, because he would be the same way. So I think it showed he was not, I hate to say weak, but he did have a weak moment there, to where others were stronger in handling, knowing that they couldn't do that, But I do think it was, I don't like what the ring did. Well, I can't say it was the ring, in a partial way, but what Gollum tried to do with their relationship, Sam and Frodo's relationship, and play the ring into that. I think at that point we see what the ring was doing to Frodo, and how he started to question the most basic. Sam loved him. He knew Sam loved him. Deep down in his heart, he knew Sam would always love him, but the ring was starting to corrupt him, and maybe he doesn't. He wants your ring,
Right.
And
Gollum wasn't helping either.
No, he was playing right.
We're getting all the way into the third movie at this point, but
yeah, we are.
We don't meet Gollum until like the end of the second movie.
Yeah.
Or near the end.
Well, in the beginning of the first one, they show how Bilbo got the ring.
Right.
Yeah.
Briefly.
And it was also crazy to see that once Bilbo gave up the ring, what the ring was really doing for him. He instantly aged and got sick, and
yeah.
Now, see, that's one thing. This is the ending of the movie, but I don't understand. Where's the boat going to? Where was Erwin? Where was she headed to? Elysian Fields, or
sort of. Yeah.
So he was sending his daughter to die?
No, not in that sense. Which boat and which daughter are we talking about again?
Okay, we're talking about Arwen, when he told her that there was nothing here for her and she needed to get on the boat.
Ah,
so
okay.
I was just assuming that was the same boat at the end of the movie.
Yes. Except
which movie?
Well, she's jumping between the whole series. She's jumped.
That's what I'm seeing too.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Stop it.
But yeah. So the deal is with the elves don't have. The elves are not human, and they're much older and they live a lot longer, and they don't die of natural causes basically. But the world, Middle Earth, kind of wears them down over time, over centuries and eons. Where they're going is essentially back home. They're going to Valinor is the name of the place. And it's where the elves originally came from, back when there were a lot fewer elves. But the deal is they can go there, and that whole wearing down, basically aging process stops. Mm-hmm. Or at least they don't feel it anymore, and they can kind of just sort of exist without having to worry about death.
Okay. That makes sense.
And the thing that... Oh, never mind. I don't want to go too far off into the third movie, but I could.
Yeah, because you don't want to piss off Les anymore than he already is.
It's...
Too late.
But yeah, we get up to the point where Frodo crosses the river. That's the end of the first movie. Okay. Frodo and Sam cross the river.
And that was another sad part where he was going to leave Sam, and he's like, "Don't you leave me, Mr. Frodo." started walking underwater.
See, well, that's because he didn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
I always the line that line. I could never. Yeah, my emotional reaction to that scene was always a little weird, a little mixed, because I could never not laugh at the line where Frodo says, "Sam, I'm going to Mordor alone," and Sam says, "Of course you are, and I'm coming with you." I'd never
Yeah.
been able to not laugh when he says that, because it's just there's just so much conviction and just absolute denial of what he's hearing. He's just like, "Fuck it, I don't care, I'm going." You're not
Yeah.
bullshit. It's him basically saying, "Bullshit, you're not going alone. I don't give a damn what you think.
I think you're alone.
No one can do this alone."
Yeah.
And he's right, of course.
Say he couldn't have done it without him.
Probably not. That's part of I think in a way what the story is about.
Is their friendship?
It's really about friendship, and it's about connecting with people and how
Going to the ends of the earth to bring them back.
and how we gain strength from that.
Yeah. Because he carried him the last part of the way, you know?
Literally picked him up and carried him.
Oh,
That's third movie again. Please keep doing that, Les, every time. Because you know it's going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved when they showed Rivendell. That was just beautiful.
Oh, okay. If we want to talk about beautiful, we have got to talk about the music.
Yes.
Because holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how anyone else could have better captured basically the essence of Tolkien's work, of The Lord of the Rings. Oh my God. I don't go out of my way for soundtracks, but you can bet your ass I have all three of these. I had to, because the music is just so amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so...
Now, they did carry that over into the video games, too.
Oh, yeah, totally. Well,
it's the great Howard Shore there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you learn pretty fast as you're paying attention to these things is that the Tolkien estate is very careful about that sort of thing, and they retain ownership to everything. So they control completely what gets used where. So yes, when they're commissioning video games to be made, of course they own the music so that they can use it.
Yeah.
They're very careful about that. And more than
and
a
the
little
games
litigious.
Were pretty well done, too.
I've never
You
played
said
a
if
Lord
you-
of the
if you
Rings
wanted
game I
that-
didn't like.
If you wanted that extra high, tide you over till the movie came out, those were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They let you see a lot without spoiling it,
Mm-hmm. And they were releasing them before just to drum up some interest.
Keep you there.
It worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
And speaking of beautiful, oh my God, the cinematography
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
was so spectacular. This was New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, God, probably the greatest piece of tourist advertisement you can have is that this freaking franchise. Go to New Zealand.
Yeah. Welcome to Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Shire. Yep. And as far
Some
as
of
I
that-
know, they did when they built the sets, they didn't tear them down again.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
And they're basically a tourist attraction now.
It's also where Xena was shot.
Yes.
My bucket list vacation.
It's a long way away.
It's a
Yeah.
long trip, yeah.
Beautiful scenery, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, totally worth it. But prepare to be on a plane for a long, long time.
Now, when she's in the lake with those horses, is that the first movie?
Crossing the river, yeah. Crossing the
Okay.
shit, I'm gonna blank on the name of the river now, but yeah.
That was pretty amazing, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know
that was
how
basically
they
cross at the
shot
last
that.
river to get to Rivendell. That was the deal. That was basically a defense system for Rivendell. Rivendell is pretty well hidden from prying eyes. You didn't stumble
Yeah.
into Rivendell by accident.
Well, and I kind of took it too that they drew their powers from the water.
Such powers that they have, they draw from the earth in general. But yeah.
Yeah.
Tolkien and power is an interesting and lengthy conversation. More specifically, Tolkien and magic is a very interesting conversation that's probably too long for our purposes here. But
You're the one that has to edit it, so you tell us.
Okay, the short version is Tolkien is very famously Roman Catholic. Roman Catholics do not comprehend magic as we have come to understand it in fantasy literature and movies and stuff. So it's a different conversation that way. It's what the magic is bad in Catholicism. Magic is what evil people do, sort of thing. I'm oversimplifying big time, but so that's not what the elves use. It's not what Gandalf uses.
When you can tell that the magic that Gandalf does is like fireworks and,
Parlor tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff that looks like magic is parlor tricks. And the deal is that someone like Tolkien would describe Gandalf as an old wizard, using wizard in the much more traditional sense of just an old man.
Yeah.
Basically a wise man type person, not necessarily someone who throws fireballs around.
Yeah. And he didn't very often.
He did not.
Yeah.
You get into a weird visual thing, but that's not until the second movie in Isengard, but with him and
When he's the white.
Saruman. Yeah.
Well, and the guy who is using magic is evil.
Right.
So, makes sense.
Most of that is mind control stuff anyway, so.
Yeah.
Which is also evil.
And Christopher Lee got to sing in this movie. That's awesome. That's in the first one, right?
I'm not sure.
No, it's the second one. Crossing them out.
We don't get a whole lot of Saruman until the Two Towers.
Yeah.
But yeah. We do get a Balrog.
Yeah.
Which was very controversial at the time, as I recall. There were a lot of Tolkien people who were very annoyed that the Balrog had wings.
That it wins?
That it had wings.
Oh, okay.
But that's different.
I didn't get that fight at all. So they didn't hit a bottom, they hit a mountain?
Well, they were under the mountains. And yeah, that was a long fall. No doubt. Probably stretched out a bit for cinematic purposes. I am a little bit removed from the description. I don't think there was much description of that battle in the book. It was basically just Gandalf after the fact telling the boys what happened briefly. So I think that's the case. That's one of the several cases in all three of these movies where Jackson had to get a little creative. And it
add a little meat.
Worked pretty good. It looked good when he did it.
It did.
So it kind of you kind of sweep it under the rug a little bit and it's fine. But yeah, there was way more falling in that scene. I think a lot more of that was supposed to be slow motion than it appeared to be. I think the whole thing was them playing with the time in that sequence. But yeah.
Yeah.
It looked cool.
So from the time that he set off to the time that he tossed it in the volcano, how much time had passed?
A little over a year, if I remember correctly.
So they walked a long time.
They damn sure did. Yes. They do a lot of walking off camera.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean, it took us 3 years to get the story, so I figured it was a lot of walking.
It was a lot of walking. That is.
Christopher?
Huh?
Christopher? Christopher Walken?
Oh, man, they should have had him in this movie.
It took me a minute too. I was like,
With cowbell.
Yep.
Oh, gosh.
The only thing about the movie that drove me crazy is I know, like, Elijah Wood's not 3 foot tall. So when they shot to scenes where they were showing them up against other regular sized humans, the kid actors were sometimes a little stiff and totally did not match who they were supposed to be. So
well,
that was a little distracting sometimes.
That is entirely true. And I mean, the kicker is that it's not just kids in clothes, it's not just the grown-ups when they're doing them. They're not just in clothes, they're in costumes. And there's some weight to them, and that might account for some of the stiffness.
Sure.
And the kids are not as good at handling that because, honestly, I don't think they were using trained children. They were just kind of using kids they had or kids they could get from the local talent agency back in Wellington or wherever. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, they had to resort to some pretty clever camera work just to get some of that stuff.
Yeah,
to look
and
right
you could tell when they were on the horses, that was straight up dummy. That wasn't a kid. That wasn't nothing. That was straight up. And actually, they said that Gimli was, although he was a dwarf, he was actually the tallest person on set. So they really had to play around to get him done right, and
It's done by camera angle and forced perspective.
Yeah.
Just like in the movie Elf, when Buddy was with his co-workers and things. Those were adults, but they had him shot at a different position than the other actors were. Like Bob Newhart, there's a scene where he sits on Newhart's lap. That was all forced perspective.
No, I'm pretty sure those are real elves they're using in that movie.
Yeah.
What do I do?
That's pretty cool, though.
Oh, yeah. It is pretty cool. And, yeah, they did a lot of playing with that in both movies.
And in the whole movie, I hate to bring it in as a whole, but, I dabble in meshes and 3D graphics and that kind of stuff. So when the behind the scenes came out and they showed how they did some of their CGI, oh my God. I mean, I'm sure they've gone way beyond now, but at the time, when you see a battle scene of 3,000 orcs, 10,000, a million, whatever, at any point they could go into their program and click on them, any one, and you automatically saw from their view what was going on around them. I mean, it was amazing. It still blows me away that they can do things like that.
You cried during the documentary too, didn't you?
But it's one thing to have 5 points of reference that you can go from and see from that point of view and stuff. Imagine having 10,000 orcs and 10,000 points of perspective. And that's how you got some of the shots we got.
Well,
It
but the great part of that is you can just do a section of, I mean, pick a number, how many orcs, and then replicate it over and over again. And so
when they're marching.
You can really do it with, like, say, 25. You do a 5x5 square, and you can, I mean, I think they used more than that. I'm just pulling a number out of my ass. But,
Right.
And then you just basically copy and paste that until it looks like 20,000 or whatever.
Yep. Now, see, you could, but in order to get the points of view from each individual, you have to do each individual, if that makes sense. Each avatar has to have an engine, so you can see from them, so you can move them around, so you can interact with the other things. Each one has to have their own program almost.
Right.
So.
And which is why I say 5x5 is pulling something out of my ass, because they did it with a much larger group than that. But
yeah,
I mean, it's
so
easy. You get to a point where you can replicate
work
it.
That went to build the program was, man,
it was groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah,
I mean they were
those
inventing
guys
shit left and right in this movie. They were inventing
They're
it.
banking right now.
Oh yeah. This made the careers of a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the Weta Workshop didn't really exist. I mean, some of those guys had worked together before, some of those people, but they created that thing essentially just to make this movie.
Yeah.
And boy howdy, they're one of the best in the world at it now.
I mean, and when you see things like that they did inside of their movie, to me, when I watched that the first time, oh, you better believe I was buying the video game, because if they're doing that for a movie, imagine what they're doing for their video game, where they've already they've already got the engine, they've already got the the avatars moving and looking, so it was like, holy shit. And at the time, it was some of the best games that came out.
Mm-hmm.
To get on the nerdy side,
Oh, sure.
That part blew me away. And it was things like that made this such a success, because it was the little details. Mm-hmm. Every little, the music, the force shot, all these little things that came together. That was, wow,
Yep. That was one of the deals with this movie, was that it was an incredible amount of detail for the time. And I mean, a big stink was made about how much it cost to make these things, but damn, it showed, because they got a lot out of that. It was a ton of money, but they got a lot out of every dollar from that ton of money.
Yeah. Well, and the things they were creating, like the CGI program, for instance, you only had to buy that once. Mm-hmm. The next time you use that, you're just going to pay somebody to do the work, or to play with what you did. So I could see that costing a pretty penny to get it set up and tweaked, or then you could have a monkey come in and run it.
Sure, and hopefully you're making it adjustable for the future, because tech's going to improve, and if you can create it the first time so that it can scale with the new tech, that's a win.
Yeah.
If you can do that.
Even better. Well, a lot of it's figuring the right code. So once you got the code down, you can change the avatar,
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a lot of motion capture in this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It kind of hit I mean, I don't know how big it was before, but because I wasn't into that at the time, but boy howdy, did this movie make it take off.
Yeah. But did it win awards?
I'm pretty sure it did.
I'm sure, yeah.
I didn't look at awards. I tend not to think in terms of awards.
Yeah. It's just nice sometimes when people acknowledge what you do.
It won 4 Academy Awards out of 13 nominations.
13 now. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It won for Best Cinematography, Best Visual Effects, Best Makeup, and Best Original Score.
Oh, gee, most of the stuff we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
It was also the nominations that didn't get awards were Best Actor in Supporting Role for Ian McKellen, Best Art Direction, Best Director, Best Film Editing, Best Original Song for May It Be, Best Picture, Best Sound, and Best Costume Design and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Wow.
And this is just the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got each movie progressively got more nominations.
Yeah.
Until Return of the King finally won the Best Picture Oscar, I believe.
Yeah, and there was some talk that they did that to award Peter Jackson for all three movies, which
who knows?
Yeah,
but
who knows? Well,
doesn't sound like a very Academy thing to do, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Anyway.
So was there anything in the first one you didn't like?
That's a loaded question. I mean, I'm biased. I was hardwired to like this movie, so.
So with the being a fan of the works, it didn't disappoint you?
No, it didn't disappoint me at all. There were a lot of people who were very worried about it when it was coming out.
Oh, for sure.
But I think the general consensus is that, I mean, the general consensus is the fans liked it a lot. There are some holdouts that claim they didn't, but I mean, it was so well done and so detailed and so visually basically stunning that there's not a lot of argument about it at this point that I know of.
Do you think that's because what you were saying about the estate having so much control over his works? Or do you think they saw what Jackson was doing and said, go for it, you know?
Well, and I think there had to be some pitch meetings, and obviously there had to be some approvals, and I'm sure there was someone from the estate involved at every step of the process, but I think Jackson was, I mean, the studio went out on a big limb with him. He hadn't done anything on this scale before. I mean, he had made movies, sure, but he hadn't done anything like this, and so they kind of had to run on faith a little bit. And the fact that the Tolkien estate got behind him said something. And I mean, clearly he did a bang up job. He made it live.
Yeah.
With something that big that is that well loved by its fan base. He did all right. I'm not sure he handled King Kong quite as well, but that's probably a different problem and a different story.
So did you like it less?
I enjoyed it, but I will say it was like the books. It was so damn long. I kept having to repeat scenes because I fell asleep. And that's my problem, not their problem. But I'm sorry, but it just took forever. And this is not the first time I'd seen it. And the previous times, yes, I did fall asleep in those too.
Yeah.
And usually it's about the same point. I go, well, okay, let's back it up.
They're speaking Elvish.
Well, the cinematography was outstanding.
Yeah.
And not bragging, but I have seen parts of that countryside, and it is
Oh,
that
man.
beautiful.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list vacation for sure.
But overall, it was a good venture. People were standing in line waiting for the sequels to come.
Hmm.
So that's a good thing. That's a positive for them. I don't know that I would be standing out waiting for a sequel that long like they did, but they were happy, so they stayed off my lawn.
Yeah, it was a longer movie compared to what now it's pretty norm, for movies to be 3 hours and such, but it was a longer movie at the time. I remember watching it in the movie theater and I'm thinking, what the hell, what time? You get out and it's dark and it's like, what the hell time is it? How long was that?
Let me pose this one. What was the longest running movie you had seen?
I don't know if Meet Joe Black came out before this or after this. But at that point, that was probably the longest movie I had seen. As far, one chunk movie. And I forget how long that one was. I mean, I didn't mind too much because it was Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Jensen wasn't around at that time, so.
No. So this came out in 98. So a little before this one.
How about you guys?
I'm checking right now.
I have no idea. This was probably not the longest movie I had seen at this point. I mean, Fellowship is only about 3 hours long. I probably had seen longer stuff at that point. I don't know. Nothing springing to mind.
Yeah, same here.
Meet Joe Black is right at 3 hours.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I never saw that.
Yeah, me neither.
I saw the original run of Charlton Heston Ben-Hur at the theater.
Oh, man.
And it was fascinating, but it was so long.
Mm.
How long was that one?
At that time, I would say it's 3 hours or better.
Yeah, I'm thinking I watched that several years ago
dang.
now on DVD, and it was 3+.
Yeah, it's 3 hours and 42 minutes.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, because they build oh, crap, what's the word? I'm blanking on the word. Intermission.
Yes.
They build an intermission into it. I swear to God,
Yes.
they did it at the 3 hour mark. It's near the end.
Oh, wow.
Seriously. I mean, there's not like 40 minutes left of the movie at that point. And I was just like, what is the point? I mean, honestly, if anybody's bladder's going to explode, it's going to have done it before the 3 hour mark. So come on.
Right.
Who are you helping here? Why didn't they put one of them in Titanic? That's what I want to know.
Speaking of
Well, the home
intermissions,
version, there was 2 tapes. You went and had a pee break when you were switching the tapes.
Right.
Do you remember that? And now it's one DVD.
Right. Yeah, I saw that Titanic. I saw it in the theater, man. I just when the boat hit the iceberg, I just had to leave. No, I can't. No, you're not going to make me sit here for 2 hours
Titanic.
having to pee and then start the water flowing.
Yeah.
Not and keep the floor dry or not. I had to go. I had to get out of there.
Titanic was 3 hours and 14 minutes long.
Yeah. It's a fairly slow-moving romance movie until about the 2-hour mark.
James used to only watch the second tape, and it was so funny because on the VHS tapes, the first tape showed the boat, and the second one showed the boat like broken half going underwater, and that's the one he always picked. He just liked, leave the romance bullshit. I want to see the boat sink.
I want to see Billy Zane running around pissed off with a pistol in his hand on a sinking ship trying to shoot Leonardo DiCaprio. That's what I want to see. That's a way more interesting movie.
Okay, the longest film I've ever seen. Because I actually had, well, there's that one, but the 1963 Cleopatra.
Okay. I've never watched that all the way through.
With Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, and Rex Harrison. That's at 4 hours and 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. How long was The Alamo?
Now, one of those that I watched, was it? Yes, The Return of the King was 4 hours and 23 minutes long.
And I didn't realize this, but The Godfather Part 2 was 3 hours and 20 minutes.
The Alamo's 3:22.
So maybe I had seen, seeing those are older movies that I would have seen at home instead of in a theater, though.
Sure.
Yeah. But still.
Was Titanic before Joe Black?
97.
So Joe Black was after.
And one of the early ones I saw too was The Great Race, and it had an intermission.
Oh, I forgot about this. It's a mad world.
Yeah.
It's 3.5 hours.
Damn.
It doesn't feel like it. I remember there being an intermission, but I didn't remember it being 3.5 hours.
No, it moves so fast.
Yeah.
But this one was fun. I'll agree. But I don't know where they could have chopped it to make it smaller.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Everything kind of played its part. There was even what you felt like was a smaller, like when Argon and Erwin are talking in Elvish and stuff. You think that's just a small moment, but it actually winds up being pretty important, especially at the end of the movie.
Given how little they actually dealt with that story, yeah, they needed that.
I was confused on that. I don't know. Can I talk about that since it's the second and third film?
Well, the intro to it is in the first one, so we'll just sort of hope Les doesn't notice.
It's breached. Go ahead.
I understood the love that these two had for each other. They made that very clear. Mm-hmm. And then when he thought she got on a boat, he had feelings for the other girl. He had just met her. And she had just, from the movie-wise, had interacted with him maybe once or twice. And she was in love, and,
Okay. So this is where we vary a bit from the story. The whole idea, the idea that Elrond would basically lie to Aragorn and say something like that is absolutely insane in Tolkien terms. There's no way he would do that. So that was there to create a little drama. Honestly, the way Aragorn is treated as a character throughout is quite a bit different from the book. But then the deal is that Éowyn,
How do you pronounce her name?
Éowyn.
Okay.
That is basic. All of that is basic. That's not Aragorn looking at her. That's her looking at Aragorn. Aragorn's just sort of there. I mean, and in the shit, I think it's near the beginning of the third one. It got cut out but put back in the extended version, and I won't go too far, Les, I promise. They put a scene back in where basically Aragorn or Eowyn starts to figure out how old Aragorn is, because Aragorn is a lot older than he looks, because he's actually descended from Elvish blood. His lineage is from Numenor, which is a very complicated and entirely different story that's outside the Lord of the Rings altogether. So I won't go there. But yeah, Aragorn. I mean, she's like, wait a minute. She has this thing where she realizes, wait a minute. My dad was telling me a story, or my uncle was telling me a story about how you were here in the time of this king who was like 5 kings ago. What the fuck? Right. And turns out he looks 35, but he's more like 95. And she's like 26 or something. I don't even remember how old she is. And so she's like, oh, okay, and starts to back off a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah.
So they played that up on the one side in Two Tower, in the second movie, and then in the third movie it cools down a bit because then she meets some other dude.
Faramir,
yeah.
Yep.
What a tease.
Who was the son that Denethor didn't like. He was the one that almost got set on fire.
Yeah. And all he had to do was take her hand, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm in love.
Well, yeah, no.
Yeah, you know. I felt that with the love that that Argon had for Eowyn, he wouldn't have even thought twice about another girl. Which, he did tell her, hey, look, you're in love with a shadow of who you think I am,
Right. And that's
so it
what
was,
he told Eowyn,
but it seemed like he only turned her off once he found out, oh, she's still here. She didn't get on a boat,
Right. And the reason for that is basically because Elrond would never have said that to him in anything other than a dramatic movie. So
yeah,
he knew Arwen wasn't going anywhere. And yeah.
So was she really tied to the evil that if they would have lost, she would have died?
Which she and what?
That Eowyn.
The blonde?
Elf?
Oh, the elf. Arwen. Yeah. See, this is the other kicker, is that the names are so similar.
Yeah.
Arwen is the elf. Eowyn is the human.
Okay. So would the elf have died if they would have lost? Was she really that tied to it? I felt that
really.
If they would have lost, everybody would have died because evil would have won, and
right. In that sense, yes, I think they may have tried to play it up a little bit more for the movie, but yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, she had already chosen
immortal life.
Yeah, I was trying not to actually directly quote it, but there's not really a better way to explain it. That is something that is specific to her family, because because her father was actually the one of the children of one of the first marriages between an elf and a human. And so somehow it all works out that because of that,
she had a choice.
They can kind of choose which type of life they want to live. And so her dad chose the elven life and basically came and founded Rivendell. But her uncle, his twin, chose the human life, and that's where Numenor comes from, that I mentioned before. Again, we could go on this for days.
So her... okay, no. Don't do it, Liz. Don't do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Les is thinking.
Yeah.
It sounded a little Star Warsy.
It's complicated, and there's been a lot written on it. A lot.
That Tolkien explained or that fans tried to explain?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you an idea. I made a crack earlier, I can't remember exactly when, about having read a lot more than The Lord of the Rings. So after Tolkien died in 1972, his son, Christopher, started going through his notes and put together what is kind of referred to as the History of Middle-earth series. He actually didn't do it quite. That wasn't his intention at first. He kind of went through and put together a book of notes that sort of explained a few little details and pulled together some other stories that came from another book that Tolkien wrote which was not published in his lifetime because it kind of never got finished, called The Silmarillion. So the Silmarillion, Christopher published the Silmarillion and then started publishing more books of notes from Tolkien's writings that he was compiling and sort of putting together into stories that made sense based on the kind of the history behind the lore, the mythology behind The Lord of the Rings and all of that. There's other stories involved there. It ended up totaling 14 books.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, they're still fiddling with some stuff now. There was a new book that came out just this year that I'm still reading that kind of adds to that even more. So, yeah, and then then you get into the academic studies and all of that, which goes way beyond.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff has been put into the study of Tolkien's works.
Get cracking, Liz.
I was supposed to say there's a lot of stuff to read and catch up on that.
There are I will warn you, some of it is kind of repetitive because it's basically finding like several different drafts of the same piece of story that Tolkien had worked on over the course of 20 years and sort of printing them all and sort of mashing them together and trying to make some sense out of it, trying to make a decent story out of some of it. Because some of it's really just fragments. It's really just pieces of things. But yeah, there's a lot there. We're not going to cover all that tonight.
No.
I think
I'll have
Les
to check
would
that
allow
out,
it.
though.
I don't think Les cares one way or the other. Right. I think he's already asleep.
That's pretty cool. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I hadn't really thought about it until this was suggested to do tonight, so thank you. I'm going to have to go watch The Hobbit and the other ones that came out after this.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yep.
The Rob Zombie version.
Oh, God. Okay. We'll have to talk offline about The Hobbit.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we take a break?
Just if you haven't seen this in a while and we've piqued your interest again, HBO Max does have these on right now. They have all three, and they also have the extended version there. So block off about 15 hours of your day and get to watching.
Or better yet, spread it out some.
Yeah, spread the love. I don't know. I enjoyed watching them back to back, and they did very well of making each one pick up exactly right where the last one left off. So it was kind of nice seeing it all, what his total vision was. So, yeah. But I also have no life, so I had the 15 hours.
In all honesty, when the extended edition came out for Return of the King, that was our New Year's Day fun. One year was watching all 3 extended editions in one day.
It's a long one.
It was way into the night before we got done.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't plan on doing that. But like I said, I had watched the first one and it was like, oh, I remember this, but I don't remember some of this. So what happened again? And oh yeah, I remember this. What's the third one? What do you mean it's midnight?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean I have 20 missed messages?
Oops.
Because that is one thing with the Elvish language and stuff that they use sometimes in here, and just some of the little details they throw at you. It's not the kind of movie you can have playing in the background.
Mm-mm.
You always have to, unless you're Les. But to me, I had to see what was going on,
Well, and again, the cinematography too.
Yeah. So, yep, HBO Max if you want to see it again.
And
if you take the time and do Elvis's voice, it makes the Elvish a lot more pliable.
A hunk of burning Mordor, huh?
oh,
Well, and my axe, baby.
Frodo has left the building.
and on that fill in the blank note, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. Oh, God. And we're back. Normally, this is our time that we do weekly picks, but as we have been saying the last couple of weeks, with the shipping issues and not having accurate lists from distributors, we're just kind of taking a break from doing weekly picks. If you go to the website www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, our picks are listed on a separate page, or just look at our show notes. Just go check them out, and please go to your local comic book shop and help them out. We actually have a local comic shop day coming up, although it's probably going to already be over by the time this drops. But I'm sure they have some goodies from there. So definitely go check them out and support your local retailers. Any special shout outs this week?
Don't think so.
No.
Nothing here.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get on to our regular shout outs. First off, I want to thank Pop Goes to Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of a great group of fellow podcasts. We highly recommend you check them out. There will be a link in the show notes. We also want you to check out the fine men and women who make up Potter Family that have been so kind as to spread the word of the fellowship on Twitter. Easiest way to do that is do a search, #PotterFamily, and just scroll through the list, and whatever catches your attention, please download that episode, and hopefully you have a good time listening to them. Thank you guys for your support as always. Want to thank Maddie the Martyr for supplying the music to the podcast. In the show notes, you'll see a link that where you can check out their music. Thank you guys as always. And you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We do value your support and your feedback. Any comments, questions, complaints, suggestions, what have you, please send them our way. And there are several ways you can do that. Our email is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and click on, there's a contact form that you can fill out, and we'll get that. We mentioned the Discord before. We do have a feedbacks channel that you can post your comments there, or if you just want to contact us individually, we would be happy to respond to you. Social media, we are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Obviously, we are on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us both there. If you'd like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_geek. Les may or may not be found at Fake Les Webster. And I can be found at TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you'd be so kind as to rate and review the show, it would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say good night?
Just thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Appreciate your support as always. Thank you for listening. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,